Thank you for listening to Shy Sox Talk with your hosts, Chris and Matt, your weekly place for White Sox fan reactions. Kick back, relax, grab your favorite beverage, and enjoy the show. Shy Sox Talk, we are back with our good friend and newest co-host, Bill Man, the sports guy. How are you doing tonight, Bill Man?
Doing fine. Thank you for having me as always. And what is up, people in the White Sox social media world?
The White Sox are 15 games away from this abysmal season being ending. They are 7 wins away from not losing 100 games, so that's always fun to watch. And The Chicago White Sox has sent their newest right fielder back to AAA Charlotte. Oscar Colas gets sent down. Reports saying he's not necessarily listening to coaching. He's going to finish the season, I guess, with 250 plate appearances, 216 batting average, 5 home runs. Thoughts on Oscar Colas' first year as a Chicago White Sox?
There's a reason why I always keep my expectations for rookies very low. I always feel like most people go through this hype of that they think he's going to do really good, but then they're in for a disappointment. Kind of what I usually expect. A little rusty here and there, find the things that they need to work on. So I can't say I'm that surprised that he did not finish in the top 3, top 5, but I still think he could be a good hitter, actually a good player if he could figure it all out. There are some little things that I think he needs to fix, like when it comes to drop strike threes, do not hesitate. Just sprint your behind to first base. I witnessed that. We saw that, I believe it was against the A's. I can't remember off the top of my head, but that one time he didn't sprint to first. So, young hitters, every young hitter out there, drop strike 3, sprint your behind to first base. Don't even look behind the catcher. Even if you think it's foul, just run and let the ump scream foul.
Make him make the play, too. Make him make the throw. It's a routine throw, but make him do it. Right, same kind of concept in hockey. Put the shot on net, make the goalie make the save.
Yes,
I will say Oscar Colas for me was disappointing this year. He's 26. He's not like a rookie. He's had a lot of experience, but the most disappointing thing is the reports of him not listening to coaching, not improving, not working on what he's supposed to be working on, and that's why he's being sent down more as punishment, which really makes me nervous for. Is the carousel of right fielders on the south side going to continue, or is Oscar really the solution? I hope he's the solution because he could be good. I mean, he has the raw tools, but his fundamentals are rough out there, especially fielding. And if you want to get him out down in slider for right-handed pitching, it seems like he can't lay off the pitch to save his life.
I have to agree.
Hopefully. But yeah, big news is Oscar Colas not finishing the year with the big league club. Reports of him not listening to coaching, and that is tough to hear, but maybe a symptom of what the White Sox current culture is. So maybe it's a message to other guys too, that they can't really send down, but they'll say they'll get rid of them. I don't know.
I will say, at least try scare him with the, hey, if you don't listen to us, we'll get rid of you for good.
I mean, he's not Chris Getz's guy. That's the thing, right? That's the hope is.
It was Rick Hahn.
Yeah, Rick Hahn, Ken Williams guy. Well, it was Ken Williams. Remember, Ken Williams took credit for the Cuban pipeline. He always made sure everybody knew he was the one who found the Cuban pipeline.
Okay.
Yeah, it was the two-headed monster that we got for, what was it? 6 years, 7 years, something like that. No, more than 6 years. Chris Getz came in 2017. Decade of Rick Hahn, Ken Williams, double-headed monster, 4 of the worst seasons,
even though
ever.
Williams has been around since like 2000.
Yeah, Ken Williams was at a list of people who were with the same organization for 25 or 20 plus years. Tell me which one doesn't belong. The guy who made the Nashville Predators a contender every year for expansion franchise. Can't remember his name. Greg Popovich, Bill Belichick, Ken Williams.
Oh,
Tell
jeez.
me who doesn't belong on that list, right?
Uh,
Guy had a longer leash than anybody in sports.
yeah. Look, Ken Williams. I mean, Popovich brought champs. So did Belichick. I mean, the guy with the Predators, you got to give him credit, even though they've been to the Stanley Cup once, but lost to none other than Sidney Crosby and the Pittsburgh Penguins.
That's right. And they were an expansion franchise when that guy got there. He took a literal nothing to a pretty consistent competitor in the Western Conference in the NHL. And, Ken Williams, mired in mediocrity for 20 years. Got lucky once, and I'll take that. I'll take that '05 season every
I
time.
mean, hey, I'll take it that he at least gave us a championship. So at least we could always say thank him for that.
Beat the Cubs to it. That's all that matters. We beat the North Side to it.
The fact that those crazy nauseated Cub fans, it still baffles me. One, we took 20 years quicker. You Cub fans took 20 years too long. Oh, and by the way, we went 11-1. We'll always be better than the 2016 Cubs. End of debate. It's just crazy that those nauseated Cub fans. And remember, just be patient. Just be patient. They're the Dallas Cowboys 2.0. What can go wrong will go wrong. They will collapse in front of their very own eyes. We are going to witness that art come month of October, and it's going to be beautiful.
Dream scenario, they're like one, their magic number's one, and they just fall apart with a week left. That's the real dream scenario.
That would be very beautiful. Chef's kiss.
So we thought, as much fun as the White Sox have been to talk about all year because they've been playing great baseball, it would be more fun to think about Chicago White Sox what ifs. We didn't really put a timeline on it. It could be any what if. And Bill, man, I'm going to let you fire off your first what if.
All right. So most people don't know this, and this would drive Cub fans crazy. So Cub fans, be very grateful that you got Jake Arrieta when he was good, if we scratch 2021, because we know he was abysmal. He actually almost became a White Sox once upon a time. So according to Chuck Garnfrein, the White Sox had a trade in place that I believe it would have sent Jake Arrieta, and I don't know if Pedro Strop would have been involved or not, but Jake Arrieta would have gone to the White Sox. The White Sox would have sent Jesse Crain. The problem was Crain injured his shoulder. So what if the White Sox traded for Jake Arrieta in exchange for Jesse Crain? And imagine their starting pitching, their top three with Chris Sale, Jose Quintana, and Jake Arrieta.
Ooh, the rebuild might never happen. The rebuild would never possibly happen. That's a team that actually competes in 2016 and doesn't fall apart after the first month of the year. That's a real.
The only question I would have is, like, would he have been that good that he was with the Cubs on the White Sox? I don't know how much better Don Cooper would have made him, but
I don't think he ever accredited that success though in Chicago to like the Chicago pitching staff. I think he accredited it to more like figuring out himself. And if that's the truth, which he could be lying about it because he didn't like the pitching coach. If that's the truth, I think he figures it out on the South side as well. Maybe not a Cy Young, but you don't really need a Cy Young when you got Chris Sale as your ace.
no.
That's good. That's a good one. That was one I did not think about. My first what if is, what if the Chicago White Sox draft Mike Trout in 2009?
Oh,
instead of, I can't even remember who it is, but
can anybody?
He's a center fielder from Jersey. I'll tell you that much. Just the wrong one.
Yeah.
But there's a two-part of this what if, because I assume even with Mike Trout, the rebuild probably happens. So you send Chris Sale to Boston for Kopech and Moncada, and then you get the other trade, which was Cody Bellinger and Jose Urias. That was the trade that was passed up on. There were two trade offers for Chris Sale, and they did Moncada and Kopech. And I'm assuming you send Mike Trout to the LA Dodgers. This is, again, a fictional world, and you get Urias and Cody Bellinger back in that deal. And now your roster in 2023 has Urias, and they're not going to let Cody Bellinger walk in 2022. how different would that landscape look for all of those years if the White Sox did that?
I'm going to go with the first part. If you have Mike Trout, you're literally in heaven. I'm willing to bet if Mike Trout was actually played his first full season, 2012, if he was with the likes of, well, actually, I think White Sox possibly could have made the playoffs with Trout. But then there comes some other questions because from in 2012, our main outfielders were Viciedo, De Aza, and Rios. Would those three have stuck around? Or possibly one of them could have maybe moved to a different position? Who knows? Or would you have never
DH.
got them at all?
Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe you got one as your fourth bench guy. You know, I mean, people don't play all 162. Even Mike Trout, he would have been a rookie, so I'm assuming they probably would have still gotten those guys with the somewhat known commodity that he was in the minors, but not really. You don't know that he's Mike Trout until he actually shows up on the scene. I don't know. I guess my math with the trade to LA is he with the arbitration years and the everything like that, that lines up similarly with the year Chris Sale's traded. So I think if the rebuild still happens, those two still get shipped off, and now that rebuild kickstarts with a very different four as a core versus, and then you still have Raylo and Lucas Giolito and who's the third piece in that deal? And I can never remember.
Dane Dunning.
Dane Dunning. Do you trade Dane Dunning then for Lance Lynn because you have a lefty in Urias? You know how like that whole thing looks. I think that's a ripple effect if you draft Mike Trout. That like you could probably make a whole 30-minute YouTube trade tree video off of that if that like that NFL what ifs kind of video. But yeah, that was the first what if that popped in my head is what if they picked up Mike Trout?
Okay, my next one is sort of two-part, maybe not. Part one, what if the White Sox kept Mark Buehrle, re-signed him because he was a free agent in 2011, and acquired Kevin Youkilis in the same offseason, assuming they still do the same trade, which was Youkilis for Boston in exchange for Zach Stewart, Brent Lillibridge. And then part two, what if the 2012 White Sox made the playoffs? Because that's the one season I could still remember from my heart to this day.
Ooh, that's good. Because that rotation now has Mark Buehrle in it. Probably still your top guy.
And then you probably do Sale, Peavy, 2 and 3. Philip Humber would most likely be a bullpen fifth because John Danks did get hurt. So then you bump him down and Gavin Floyd as your 4 and 5. And then Quintana, I forgot.
You would still have. You might trade Quintana that year, maybe not, but Quintana could be a swingman. My real thought is Mark Buehrle is probably worth 2 or 3 more like games that he would have gone and just pitched and won over just about anybody in that rotation. So you definitely make the playoffs. It's just a matter of how much noise do you make in the playoffs. And I think it's a lot. I think it's a ton of noise you make that year in the playoffs. I'm trying to recall who won the 2012 World Series. Was that the
San Francisco Giants?
Or was that the second one they had, right?
Yes, that was their second because they beat Texas in 2010 and Kansas City in 2014. And thankfully, they beat the Tigers.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I guess you still have to go against that Tigers rotation of Scherzer and Verlander and that whole crew. That's a good one. I like that a lot. That's a really good one. Ooh. Because then I'm trying to think about who they drafted in 2013, and I think that was like a miserably bad miss.
I know Tim Anderson was one they drafted in 2013.
He was the first rounder in 2013. So do you still get Tim?
Yes.
See, now this is a whole layer. Do you still get Tim the first round? Do you make your 4 or 5 slots back? Does somebody else pick him up? Then who is the shortstop of the future?
Or could you have somehow wished that you could have maybe gotten Chris Bryant, who was taken second by the Cubs? Second or third. I know he was drafted by the Cubs, and he could have been your third base / outfield in the future. And
Yeah,
assuming after Euclid, you don't go the cycle of Connor Gillespie, who was actually solid, Jeff Keppinger to that abysmal deal, only lasted like one season. Mike Olt, Yolmer Sanchez, Todd Frazier, Brett Lowry, Moncada, Andrews, Josh Harrison, Matt Davidson.
yeah. I guess another third base has been a revolving door, huh? That's always kind of in my head been like it's been locked up by Moncada. It hasn't. It really hasn't, huh?
And assuming Euclid doesn't hit like 230 like he did with the Red Sox by the time he got traded.
Yeah. Well, then we're fast forwarding Jake Burger. Does Jake Burger just come up as a second baseman then because your third base is already kind of locked down? Or is he just like, do you switch him to first base and now he's the first baseman and Andrew Vaughn was never drafted? Or even if he was, do you move Andrew Vaughn because you got Jake Burger? Whole can of worms.
That man, that was just the biggest what if.
Yeah.
Okay.
I got a very specific what if.
Ooh.
What if Russa never pinch hits Cesar Hernandez in game 2 for Adam Engel?
You mean Leury?
He pinch hit for Adam Engel, put Leury in right field, and Cesar Hernandez came in second. And then the outfall, what happened was Leury Garcia doesn't make the play on the fly ball that Adam Engel definitely would have. Houston breaks it open. You lose a 3-run lead. Houston, Kyle Tucker makes the play, right? That Leury Garcia doesn't. Houston win games 2. Now you're going to Chicago down 2 games. But in my head, if you don't do that, he catches it. You hold a 3-run lead going into the 7th. You can win game 2. You win game 3. Now you're in game 4. Let's say Houston still wins game 4 the way they did. Now you got a game 5 with Dylan Cease on the bump in Houston with a shot to knock the Astros out of the playoffs. And that managerial move, I think, changed the entire scope of the 2021 ALDS.
I really think that could have been a completely different ball game. Had as you mentioned, Tony La Russa not pinch hit Cesar Hernandez for Adam Engel, assuming Engel stays in and you don't put Leury Garcia in right, because Engel was technically a better defender than Leury, if I'm being completely honest.
By a ton.
And Cesar, defensively, but offensively, he was pretty silent overall.
Yeah. And Garcia just stays at second because he started that game at second. He pinch hit Adam Engel, who's batting like 8th that day for whatever, because the lefty righty matchup. Tony was obsessed with that when he shouldn't have been. But yeah, that was the game 5. You at least get a shot at game 5. I don't know if they win game 5 with Dylan Cease, but you got a shot in the second half of the year where Dylan Cease really started to put it together.
And game 5 totally could have been more of a make it or break it.
That's right.
And I can understand why White Sox were a little desperate for a second baseman because they lost Nick Madrigal for the rest of the season. And even if he didn't get hurt, I think they would have still ran with him. And I still think they would have been better off from a hitting standpoint. I would have 100% took Madrigal over Cesar in a heartbeat.
Or Garcia. I guess Garcia hit the game 3 homer, but
and Leury actually didn't do terrible either in 21. That was basically his last good year.
Yeah, you're right.
I could try to pull out.
Really bad in 22, but
yeah.
Let's say they lose game 5, right? Does Jerry loosen the purse straps a little bit and spend a little bit more money going into 22? You know what I mean? That one move, I think, changed so much. Does Marcus Semien end up being your second baseman again because Jerry feels comfortable giving out a big contract because you were one game away from being the Astros. Like that losing game 2 and the way you lost game 4, it made it feel like the gap between the two teams were way bigger than what it probably was.
Man, yeah. What did he have gave? What he had not gave Garcia that $16.5 million for 3 years, and maybe just a 1 year, 1 million.
Yeah,
kind of that. Or
what if he's not signed at all?
Yeah, or what if he actually still brought in Josh Harrison somehow? Which credit to Josh, he did fine.
I like Josh Harrison.
He wasn't. I did too. Like I actually thought he thrived in well. Like I always liked how he did his like little skip or his little trot like on his way to second.
He did his job, and that's all that matters. He did his job, and nobody else on that team ever did their job. Josh Harrison did his job. And he robbed a game, I think, from Texas in like the 13th inning with the most incredible dive catch from second base on like a little bloop shot. They were wearing their Southside jerseys that night. It was like the 10th inning, and he stole that game. I vividly remember that play, and I was against the Rangers. So,
that was pretty.
I got one more. What do you got?
What if the White Sox gone far in the 2008 playoffs? Actually, no, let me phrase this better. What if Joe Crede and Carlos Quinn did not get hurt before the 2008 playoffs?
Oh, they win. They go to the World Series. They contend.
For sure.
They're not playing in 163. I can tell you that much. Game 163 never happens.
Joe was doing actually pretty solid. Yeah, he was hitting under like 250, but 17 homers, I'll take it. And we all know Quentin went off that year after being almost a nobody with the Diamondbacks. But then when he came to the White Sox, he was a beast. But he probably could have been an MVP candidate. Maybe. Maybe I'm a little crazy for that, but top 10 outfielder of all time had he not been hurt.
Yeah. Agreed with that. I think they compete. I don't know if they win the 2008 World Series. If memory serves me correctly, the Red Sox do it that year? Was it the Cardinals?
It was the Phillies. Because they beat Tampa Bay.
Yeah. I don't know if you beat that Phillies rotation. That Phillies team was really, really good. Yeah, Tampa Bay won the AL because they got hot at the end and stole the East from that was the same night where Tampa like had an insane comeback against Boston in game 162, and the Yankees completely fell apart against the Orioles. That was a really bad team on like the 8th. And then they got really hot. So I don't know if you beat that Rays team in the playoffs. Maybe that team felt like a little bit of a team of fate, but you compete, you got a shot. You're in the ALCS for sure. I can guarantee that much. Is you're in the ALCS, and you're competing for a chance to win the pennant and go to the World Series.
It honestly still drives me crazy to this day that I never knew this till like years ago that Griffey Jr. was part of the White Sox.
That's right. He made the play in that game. Threw out the Twins.
Threw out I believe it was Kadire that ran home.
Threw him out, and then Jim Tomei went and hit the solo shot like immediately after in the bottom of that inning. Immediately hit the solo shot, and everybody lost their mind. Which the blackout game, 163 on the South Side.
And we took out their Minnesota and their yucky Twinkies because I heard their Twinkies smelled awful.
They also haven't won a playoff game in a long time. Not a series, a game. And that's my favorite record in sports.
See, and this is why I've always said on my podcast, the whole state of Minnesota, when it comes to sports, they're a bunch of frauds. The Wild, the Timberwolves, the PU Twinkies, and the Vikings. Unless they show me proof of evidence that they could go on a deep playoff runner or World Series contender, I may back off of my comment, but I'm not going to. because they've never shown us evidence. They're always frauds. Never trust them come postseason time.
I think the last championship Minnesota has was the Twins, I think, in 91, right? That was the last one. Timberwolves haven't won. Vikings haven't.
I know
Wild
haven't.
Yeah, that's got to be it. They got three teams that won championships. Yeah, it's got to be the Twins in 91, last championship in Minnesota. Makes me happy to hear. Because the North Stars lost to the Penguins in the Stanley Cup Finals in the 90s a couple times before moving to Texas. And then winning it in 2002. So shout out Dallas Stars for that. And then this is my favorite what if that I kind of came to be. It's the big one. It is, what if Jerry Reinsdorf doesn't buy the Chicago White Sox?
Ooh.
Who ultimately buys it? And what does that fate look like? Because he bought it in 83, right? Or 80, something like that in the 80s. I knew he owned it in 83 because he had Tony Russo around. Look this exact year up. Buy Sox. 1981.
Wow.
Controlling stake in 1981. What if Jerry Reinsdorf doesn't do that? Who ultimately buys it? And what does this franchise look like?
Well, for one, you'd always hope it'd be someone that actually cares about winning. And if it is to an owner that actually cares about winning, way more championships, I bet.
Yeah, they're the largest market in the country. And you're telling me you can't pack that bad boy every night? You're crazy.
Yeah.
I have a suspicion it would be like an ownership group. I bet they would have been bought by an ownership group. I don't think it would have been an individual owner. I think they would have been one of the first teams to be bought by an ownership group, which changes the whole layout of like the 40 years that he's on this team. 42 years.
It's gonna be 43.
Yeah.
Although it would have been, the layout could have been completely different, but would have the ownership group have still gotten some of the players that we've had during the Reinsdorf era, like a Frank Thomas, Paul Konerko, Greg Lazinski, Ron Kittle, Harold Baines? Would have we even had some stars that people probably don't know that play for the Sox, like Carlton Fisk, Jim Thome, Jake Peavy, Adam Dunn, Ken Griffey Jr., Kevin Youkilis, Jimmy Rollins, even.
James Shield, Manny Ramirez.
Yes. Wellington Castillo, Justin Morneau.
Let me ask you this: would you be willing to trade all those stars, Frank Thomas, Paul Konerko, all of that, for three more rings? Like consistent winning, like ownership that cares.
Oh man. If I had, I would have to look at the offer closely because
3 rings, done. See you, Frank. I love you. You're great, but you're out. You're out. 3 rings.
Man, that's a tough though. Well, I would go for 3 rings, but I would want Thomas or Konerko, or at least both part of it.
We're gonna negotiate that into the trade as well. Hey, I mean, I don't know. I think I guess also if that happens and Frank Thomas never comes, you probably don't know that what he would have done as a Sox. You know what I mean? Like, in theory, time is linear, and you'd wish, but you wouldn't know. And I'll take the rings.
Well, and also, most people probably forgot that he played about 34 games in 05, even though he was hurt. But man, with Thomas, like, would he had still been the 40-plus home run hitter that he was at his prime? Would he have been? I believe he won 1 MVP, if I'm not mistaken, in '94, because that was before the lockout.
Yeah.
Would have we gotten that from him? Or would he have been the MVP player that he was in his prime?
Does the Giants' fate fall to the White Sox, right? Like that 6-year stretch where you win a couple rings. I think Reinsdorf, obviously having a different owner and an ownership group would have changed a lot. But that's why they're what ifs and they're not reality. And they're fun to speculate. So
exactly.
Everybody, if you want more of Bill, link in the bottom below. If you want more of myself or Bill or Matt, exclusive content over at topfanrivalry.com. Coach Shy Sox for access. And
yes, sir.
As always, go White Sox.
Yes, go White Sox. Only 3 more weeks until Connor Bedard.
That's right. Don't lose 8 games, Chicago. Just don't lose 8.
Please, don't lose 100. We're begging you.
They're going to. Go Sox.
Oh, God.